So let's talk about sales letter format, layout, fonts, width of letter, color scheme, and more. The sales letter format, or the way your sales letter looks, is very important. Here's why. The human mind, when they look at a sales letter, they're not always going to look at words. Some people will just look at the words, but the majority of people out there will look at your design, they'll look at your layout, they'll look at your fonts. If it's not easy on their eyes, then most of the time they're going to just exit out, unless it's the product that they really want. But most of the time, if you make it easy for their eyes, layout wise, it's professional enough, the fonts are clear, they can read it. The width of the letter is important too, because you don't want to stretch it from one end to all the way to the other end, and I'll show you that in just a minute when I use NVU, the HTML editing tool. We'll also talk about color schemes and other things like that. So let me go ahead and go to NVU here. This is NVU, the web editing tool, and it's sort of like Microsoft Word if you've used Microsoft Word before. So it basically can create web pages or sales pages very easily. And this is actually a tool that I use to create sales pages. The first thing I want to start out by doing is make a table. So I'll press enter and go to table, insert table. All I want is just one basic table. And then I'll right click inside of that table and I'll click on table cell properties. And I'll go to table, and I want to make sure that it's chosen pixels here for the width, and I'll make it about 700 width. And I'll make the border 0, because you see that border there, it's kind of ugly. I don't want to see that. And the padding I'll probably put about 15. And I'll align it center, which allows me to move the table to the center so that I avoid stretching it from one end to the other. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So if I click on apply here, press OK, you'll notice that NVU has created a table about 700, and there we go. And if I type stuff in, it's not going to be too close to the border here. Now it looks kind of squeezed in just because I have this in, I'm recording this and it's only 640 by 480, so if I stretch this out, you'll actually see the actual sales letter. And you'll notice that here's the end part, the beginning part, and the margins separated on this end too. So you can see it's actually in the middle. But let me go ahead and squeeze that back in so you can see that more clearly. So you basically want your sales letter to cover about 70 to 80% of the actual width. You don't want to have it 100%, otherwise it's going to make it look ugly and it's going to make it hard to read, which is worse for the actual prospect. So I'm sort of skipping around here. I talked about the width of the letter, which is important. And now let's go ahead and talk about the layout and the fonts. The layout and the fonts are important in the sense where we look at the sales letter, because what people will do is when they scan a sales letter, most people won't even read the full sales letter, but you want to make it so you'll see that this is a different font than this. You'll notice the headline, subheadline, and the attention has different fonts to it. And you'll notice the body of the actual sales letter has a specific font to it. So you can separate the sales copy, the main sales copy, from the actual product copy, the benefits and the features and all that. So people sort of can get a good idea when they actually look at a sales letter. Their mind's going to think, okay, this font is located with benefits, this font here is associated with main sales copy. And this is actually one of the tips that I learned when somebody edited my own sales copy, was they said, you know, your headline has to be a different font, different size font, and certain things need to be the same, such as the sales copy body here. The testimonials need to be in a certain way, and we'll show you that later on. So basically what I'm showing you is layout the layout of your copy, as far as font goes, you need to have similar font, especially when the people's minds think, okay, this is the main sales copy, testimonials, benefits, and things like that. One thing that is important as far as layout goes is that you need to make sure that you're writing on a blank white background. White background, black words, as you can see here, because it's easy for the eyes that way. You've probably seen people who put purple backgrounds, white lettering. And if you use other colors like purple and put white words, then it doesn't look very professional at all. So some of the easiest fonts that are easy for people to see and that you want to keep and want to use are Arial Black, something that's straight up. Possibly Verdana, Georgia, Courier New, or lastly, you can also use Tahoma. And the reason why these are easy to read is because you'll notice that they stand straight up. Now it's okay if you highlight things, like if you do highlights, increase the different sizes, different colors, underline, italicize, especially when you're trying to emphasize like a fact, or you have sub-headlines or sub-connecting sentences within your copy that connect your copy together. That's okay. If you want things to stand out, like highlighting, that's great too. And you'll notice most of the time when you read sales letters that are high converting, they'll have underlining of specific keywords that you know will hit your prospect's specific needs and points. And we got to color scheme. So the color scheme, you don't want to use more than 4, 5, or 6 different colors in your sales letter. Otherwise, as far as font goes, it's okay if you're using pictures, but as far as font goes, most of the time I would suggest that you just use black, red, and blue. You can use other colors if you'd like, but try to keep that to the minimum, just because it makes your page look more professional if you use less colors. So red, black, and blue. And you can, doesn't matter about background, we're talking about font color here. So that takes care of the color scheme. So we've done layouts, fonts, width of letter, and color scheme. So these are important things that you need to understand before you actually create the sales letter. So let's go on to the next video where I talk about another type of sales letter format, which we talk about long sales letter versus short sales letter, and which one is actually better.